This is a Musclecat Media production.
Welcome to the Baseball Expats Under 12 World Cup edition. The Super Round is about to get underway. The group stage is complete. And Eric is here, as always, with Rolsey. But Rolsey's also here because he's commentating these games for WBSC on the GameTime.Sport app. It's sounding great. You've got some dramatic games the last little bit. Rolsey, how you finding it?
Yeah, really good. Whenever we talked sort of halfway through the opening round, I don't think I had called a 6-inning game until day 4 of this tournament. So we kind of talked about it a couple days ago. The gulf between the good teams and the not so good teams in this tournament is wide. And luckily we were able to get some of those big matchups, including today, which was supposed to be an off day. Obviously, it's the reason why they scheduled this off day is so they can make up any rain days. And yeah, just finished Mexico-Japan, which I think probably the game of the tournament. If it wasn't the game of the tournament, the one that was last night, Mexico versus Chinese Taipei. And look, I know I said a couple of days ago that I think this is the most wide open that we've ever seen the top tier teams. And I think the last 2 days have shown that. Group A is just finished with 3 teams at 4-1 that'll go into the Super Round with a 1-1 record against Super Round opponents, right? So Chinese Taipei able to sneak that victory against Mexico last night. That Mexican team having to bounce back, which is that's no easy feat, right? 12-year-olds, a devastating loss, their first of the tournament last night, having to turn around and play a makeup game against Japan this morning, and then they're able to win that game. So yeah, the last 2 days have just been fantastic baseball, and really looking forward to the Super Round in the next 3 days.
We'll crack a little more into that, but here's how this episode is going to work. We're going to do a quick recap of who made it through to the Super Round, take a look at the standings after the group stage. I want your opinion on the game of the first round. While I agree maybe those were the 2 most dramatic, I actually think the most lasting memory and the most lasting game will be one from 2 nights ago. We'll go into what our picks of the game of the first round was. I want to know about some players, man, that have impressed you from the tournament so far. And then, we talked about it last episode. Only 2 teams have ever won the Under 12 World Cup. And you just alluded to it there, man. Like, this feels like the best chance ever for someone else to claim that prize. And we'll touch on the placement round as well. I know it's not as significant because someone's not going to win, but it does mean a lot to the countries. And let's take a look at the standings. And I think it would be appropriate to start in Pool B. I know it's not the first in the alphabet of those 2, but man, you said it there. There's 3 teams at 4-1 that go through. They all beat each other. Japan at 4-1, Chinese Taipei at 4-1, and Mexico at 4-1. And I've been impressed by, all of those teams, and they've all beat each other, right? Mexico beat Japan, Japan beat Chinese Taipei beat Mexico, and none of those games were blowouts that they played each other. All of them were close. Those records carry over, so each of those enter the next round with a 1-1 record. So the standings are going to be 3 teams at 1 team at 2-0, 3 teams at 4 teams at 1-1, and 1 team at 0-2. So I mean, what'd you make from Group B? Is there any way to separate those top 3 teams?
Well, I mean, I said it on the broadcast today that, Mexico was basically 3 outs away last night from a 4-0 start and setting up what would have been a relatively important game against Japan today, because they still ultimately would have been able to control their fate if they lose to Japan as their first game and then run through the Super Round. You would see a Japan and Mexico final. But because Mexico lost that game to Chinese Taipei in crazy fashion last night, them backing up, having a 6-run second inning, and really just saying, hey, we're going to out Japan. I think there was 1 extra base hit in that game. So Mexico was basically, it was like beating you to death with a feather, right? Single, which has been Japan's motto really throughout this entire tournament. I think if there is one weak link in that group, that it's probably actually Chinese Taipei. I don't think they have the pitching depth that Mexico and Japan do. And probably, in my opinion, the best game in that group in the opening round was the game that we saw today in Japan versus Mexico. So if I had to say that there were 2 standouts, it would be those 2 teams. But you nailed it, right? They're all 1-1 against each other. Japan technically is the winner of the group because of TQB, but only because they outscored Chinese Taipei by 5 runs, and then had a 1-run loss against Mexico. So it sets up a fun 1v1 with Japan and Korea, who were the winners of the other group and the only undefeated team left.
The teams that just missed out in that group are Panama. They finished 2-3, Czechia at 1-4, and South Africa at 0-5. Rolling over and joining them in Group A from Group A is who was it? Korea. They finished. I think I might have mixed it up. That was Group A. That's all 4-1. So I apologize for my misspeaking.
Despite your best efforts, you went in alphabetical order.
I did go in alphabetical order. I tried not to. So yeah, I was confused.
You accidentally did it.
I'm like, what's going on here? But that's Group A. But joining them from Group B, Korea 5-0, the USA 4-1, Dominican 3-2, just missing out Panama 2-3, Czechia 1-4. Republic of South Africa 0-5. I will tell you the exact standings as per WBSC after you give me your take on Group B. But I'm just going to guide you right away, man, because the big one for me was Korea finished 5-0, notably the only undefeated team in the Super Round with 3 games to play, and they beat the United States. And stuck in a tough spot behind is going to be Dominican at 0-2. But yeah, Korea, man, they beat the USA.
Yeah, I was in attendance for that game. That was the day that we had the long rain delays, and they had to come back and play that game at night. And then we played the resumption of a game following it. So I actually got to watch that game from the stands. And look, while Korea, I think, was really good in that game, the United States did quite a bit to beat themselves, frankly. And all of these, the 3 Asian nations always have this high propensity of being so fundamentally sound. They never beat themselves. I think if there's one team that embodies that more than others, more than the other 2, it is Korea. Japan have shown some vulnerabilities. I think there were some times today where they could have bunted and didn't. You normally see a Japan team do that. This Chinese Taipei team probably striking out more than you would normally see a Chinese Taipei team. Korea are without a doubt the most fundamentally sound team in this entire tournament. And that showed whenever they defeated the United States. For the USA, maybe they get a little bit of reprieve from that because their first 3 games, they were destroying teams. They were clearly overmatched the opponents that they were playing in Panama, Czech Republic, and South Africa. Those were their first 3 games. So I think Korea probably hit them pretty hard. It's like, oh, yeah, right. We've got some competition in this tournament. So I'm willing to maybe give the U.S. a little bit of leeway there. But what it does mean is now that they have to essentially go on and win 3 games in the Super Round, right? I mean, the Dominican Republic gave them a pretty good game for half of it yesterday. I knew that would happen because I was really high on this Dominican team. It's unfortunate that they're 0-2 because they're actually a better team than that. But no, I do agree. I think Korea is probably the most fundamentally sound, and if they just continue to play that style of baseball, they're going to be hard to beat. But look, I don't necessarily think that anybody is unbeatable in this tournament. That's part of what makes the Super Round pretty exciting.
Yeah, Super Round standings, man. I was just taking a look at this and trying to guess. Korea at 2-0, Japan 1-1, Mexico 1-1, Chinese Taipei 1-1, USA 1-1, Dominican 0-2. The problem here for these 6 teams is there's only 2 spots in the gold medal game, and you talk about how good Korea has been, but they have to go through Japan, who have looked really good, Mexico, who have looked really good. Chinese Taipei might line up their ace against Korea and try to get them in that one because they're going to want to win a TQB against Korea if that happens in a tiebreaker. So that's not a cakewalk for Korea either. Same goes for the USA, who need to be flawless. They can't lose to any one of those teams if they want to make it. So, I mean, there's really no way of saying whose is this tournament to lose because all of them control their own destiny. None of these teams can afford to lose a game. You're probably going to need to go 3-0 in these next 3 games if you want a chance to play in the gold medal game. To get in, you're probably going to have to go 3-0 for any of these teams, and you have to do it against teams that have been running the gauntlet so far.
You're a stats guy, so you'll like this one. Ryan Chen, who is my broadcast partner today, brought up a stat. In the 7 years prior of this tournament, there's 6 teams that have gone to the Super Round in each of those years. What is that? 7 times 6, 42 teams. Of 42 Super Round teams in the U-12 World Cup dating back to 2011, only 5 have run the table in a Super Round. Can you believe that?
And you're going to need 2 to get it through. Like, that's what's going to happen because teams have already beat each other too many times, like too often. So I do believe it because the super round is really, really hard, right? Like you're playing against the best quality teams. The odds are you're going to slip up, but it kind of feels like that's the demand that's going to have to put on it. And it's an incredibly tall task. But all I know for sure is the 2 teams that will be playing in the gold medal game on Sunday will deserve it because they have just beat 3 really good teams to get there. And honestly, you can make a case for any one of those 5 teams. You can actually make a case for Dominican because they're mashing the ball too. And they've had a couple tough losses, but they're going to need to win out and have losses so they don't really control their destiny. That's the only difference with Dominican. But there's probably 5 teams that if you ask me in 5 different minutes from each other, I could be like, yeah, Rolsey, I see them. I see them winning this World Cup. It is wide open. And we haven't really seen this from this event before.
Yeah, and look, and I even think, I mean, the one team that you're leaving out, obviously, is the Dominican Republic because they come in with 2 losses, right? They're 0-2.
They don't control their destiny.
But I still think that they can be a really big bogey team. And we'll talk about why I think that's the case in just a little bit. But I think anybody thinking similar to the United States who may have taken Korea a little bit lightly the other night, I think if anybody goes into a Dominican Republic game taking that lightly, they've got a manager who's a former big leaguer, played in the MPB. He would be coaching that team to say, look, we're still potentially a chance to play for a bronze medal here. Let's not pack in. But we've got some regional rivals that we can play. I mean, the Dominican-Mexican game is going to be big regardless. It doesn't matter what's on the line when those 2 teams play, right?
What does work out for Dominican, though, is that they do get to play Japan, Mexico, and Chinese Taipei, who already each have 1 loss. So if Dominican gets to the gold medal game, it's because they've won all 3 games, which then means that Japan, Mexico, and Chinese Taipei have all lost a game. Now, where it gets chaotic is what happens if the USA lose another game somewhere along that way. That's their best way through, right? Is getting in a 3-way tiebreaker, not allowing a lot of runs and getting through. So the point is it's wide open. We're going to talk about a couple more predictions towards the end of it. So let's not spoil it. We're going to make people wait a little bit, Rolsey. Let's put a bow on the opening round. And just quickly for you, out of every game, the only rule is here, you cannot say 2 games. I'm gonna put a gun to your head, and you have to choose 1 game for what you think the game of the opening round was.
Why? I was thinking about this on the bus ride back half an hour ago because, I mean, really, I've called 2 very competitive games, and they're the last 2 games that I've called, and they both involved Mexico. And for a few reasons, I think that performance that they had against Japan today is one of the best games that I have ever seen a Central, South American, a Latin American country play in this tournament, full stop. And Mexico won a bronze medal in this tournament back in 2017. But for them to pick themselves up, it's the background of it is just as special for me as the game was. And the pitching performance at the back end of that game is going to feature when we talk about some individuals in just a second. But to lose that game the fashion they did, to lead Chinese Taipei 5-0 yesterday, make it 5-5, a hit by pitch ends the game last night. They suffer their first loss and have to come back 12 hours later and play an undefeated Japan team. They would be forgiven, and Juan Morales would have been forgiven for not being able to get that team back up for a 10:30 start this morning. But my, oh my, they put a 5 spot on the board in the second inning after Japan took a lead. And when Japan takes leads, they put that anaconda grip on you where you just don't get the lead back, right? And the way they were able to just clinically, single after single, keep the line moving, draw walks, put in good at-bats, make good defensive plays, and hang on for a 7-6 win. They celebrated after they won that game like they had won a gold medal.
It was awesome.
They knew how important that win was. And you could just see, I mean, Juan Morales doesn't give a lot away. He's sort of one of those old burly type managers. He doesn't give a lot away, but even he had a wry smile on his face because he knew just how big it was for those kids to get up and win that game against a team that prior to this morning looked unbeatable in Japan. And what it also did, I think the other reason why I think maybe it's the best game that I've seen is because what it's done for this super round. If Japan and Korea both go into the super round undefeated, each of those teams can afford a loss to the other team. And because of head-to-heads, as long as they don't lose again, it's those 2 teams in the gold medal. So if Japan wins today, Japan and Korea are both red hot favorites to get to a gold medal game. But what it does now is it makes the race for that gold medal game really, really exciting. So for mine, a game that wasn't supposed to happen today on day 6, which is supposed to be an off day. Japan and Mexico. Both teams played well, but hats off to Mexico for winning that game today.
It just embodies the swings of tournament baseball, right? Mexico started this tournament 3-0 and allowed 2 hits and no runs in their first 3 games, and then jumped the tournament hosts who have won this tournament so many times and were leading 5-0 and blew it. And that is devastating for an adult, let alone a 12-year-old. And just as you described they go and they beat the best baseball nation on earth. Historically, the best tournament team is Japan. There's no question, there's no debate about who the best tournament team is historically as a nation in international baseball at any level. It's Japan. So yeah, you're right. That was a really cool moment. I love your pick. Now, you'd probably want me to say the game that comeback from Chinese Taipei and the host, because you know what? Excellent game, certainly in contender. I'm actually going to go with the Chinese Taipei versus Japan game as my game of the tournament so far for a few different reasons. One, no, it wasn't the closest game in the world, although it was tight late. Like, Japan ended up winning that game by 5 runs, but Chinese Taipei kept pushing back. They kind of traded shots. For me, what was amazing about this was the backdrop and the energy. There were over 6,000 people that were at this game, and it was such a unique environment and atmosphere to watch 12-year-olds play baseball, and it had the full atmosphere of what you'd expect at an Asian World Cup. There was drumming, there was singing, there was chanting, there was crowd, there was Japanese support, there was Chinese Taipei support. Ricardo Scolari posted a really cool video on his feed of just like what that atmosphere was. WBSC posted it as well. I just think that says so much about this event, that you're getting 6,000 people out to support these 12-year-olds and play. And it just created this under the lights spectacle and drama that was between 2 undefeated teams. And it was an exciting game with highlight reel moments. So no, it didn't have the tournament draw. I agree with you. That was the game of the tournament. I'm just saying something different for the sake of being different. But for me, that was just such a cool moment that made this event look so much cooler and feel like it had so much weight to it. I was split between watching your game calling and I was like, oh man, I could hear noise coming through your feed on a different feed. You were on a different field and I could hear the noise from that game. It was awesome.
Yeah, I was inside. I mean, the 2 fields are probably, I don't know, 400 meters apart. And I was inside a building on the opposite side from where the main stadium is. And yeah, I could hear it through my headset, but I could hear the rumble outside of the door as well. So, I mean, I've gone back and watched bits and pieces of that game. Chinese Taipei actually had a few opportunities to get themselves back into that game that they usually take advantage of. I mean, 2 times late in that game, they had the potential tying run at the plate. And Japan just pulled away late. 7-2, the final score makes it look like it was a blowout for Japan, but it really wasn't. But yeah, I mean, and look, I've talked a lot with you and with Spoon that this is one of my favorite tournaments to call, full stop. And that's why, right? Because those kids could get really wide-eyed. You know, they could sort of drop the ball and use those nerves and use them as excuses and whatever else. We just simply don't get to see kids this age play in front of crowds like that. It's just something we don't get to see very often, right? So when you do get to see it, I hope that we get to see it. I hope the Chinese Taipei fans come out in the super round. Look, I hope they make a run, because the better they play in this tournament, the more exhilarating the atmosphere is, right? So I'm not going to begrudge you for making that your favorite game so far.
Well, Rolsey, I mean, what's been cool about this too is watching some of the individual performances. I know what's cool about this is the team game, but it just magnifies the potential that some of these players have coming through. We saw Nick Kurtz give the game of the MLB, well, forever with those 4 home runs he played in the Under-12 World Cup. I kind of want to use a time machine now, and it's impossible to predict because these kids haven't hit their growth spurt yet. They're not even at their baseball development, but it's kind of fun to do it. And maybe in 10 years, we can look back and I can say, dude, remember 10 years ago when you and I had this podcast and you told me these 3 players that impressed at the Under-12 World Cup, and then they went on to do big things? So I want to know the Andrew Reynolds big 3 of some players who have impressed you. I've got a couple written down. I'm going to give one and it'll be someone that you haven't mentioned. I'll just go as like the honorable mention. I'm the honorable mention guy. You're the podium. I'm the lucky loser.
Well, I'll start with that game today and a guy that we even talked about a couple days ago in Iker Cavillo, who plays for Mexico. I mean, you got to see quite a bit of him whenever he made that start against Australia, top the mound on opening day. He came in a relief role against Japan today and threw 3 innings of 4-hit baseball and allowed just 1 run, striking a guy out, and essentially he was on the mound to get the final out in that game. And it just, you just felt like whenever he came on, the clamps really came down, and Japan started to, they started to struggle a bit more than what they were against the starter in Arturo today. But the thing that impresses me the most about Cavillo is how cerebral of a pitcher he is. You don't normally see that at a U-12 World Cup. There was one instance today in which the potential tying run was at the plate, the bases were empty, and it was a 3-0 count, and Japan had been really free swinging. Twice against Arturo earlier in the game, Japan had gotten a base hit on 3-0 counts. He threw a 3-0 breaking ball that was swung over the top and missed, and just stared back in at the hitter as if to say, I knew you were going to swing regardless of what it was, so I was going to throw you something that you couldn't hit. So then on 3-1, the hitter's going, all right, cool, I've seen the breaking ball. You got to come back with a fastball. Nope. Threw him another breaking ball that he swung over the top of. And I'm just sitting there going, for a 12-year-old to have that kind of mindset on a 3-0 count in the 6th inning with a potential tying run in your tournament on the line, to go, I'm going to challenge you because I think I'm beating you at chess at the moment, despite the fact that you've got way more pieces, was so impressive. So the numbers are one thing. I mean, in 2 games, an 0.86 earned run average, 7 total innings pitched, and has allowed just 4 base hits. Those numbers speak for themselves. And oh, by the way, he's 4 for 10 from the plate with 4 doubles. So the guy can swing it as well. He has ability, but just watching him kind of go through the motions, he can play the outfield. He played third base today as well. So he can play all over the diamond when he's not pitching. I've just been super, super impressed with the kid and his headiness and the swagger that he's got on the field as well. He's been so much fun to watch, man.
Yeah, he no-hit Australia in game 1, and he's clearly Mexico's guy, right? Like, they used him in game 1, so no funny business happened versus Australia, right? You're supposed to win that game. No funny business. Win your first game of the World Cup. Get yourself in the tournament. Know that you have some big dogs later that you might need to use them for. And you know what? They had a big dog they needed to line up against for later in the tournament, and they pulled the strings of their guy perfectly. Iker Cavillo, the number 1. Well, these aren't number 1, 2, and 3. These are just 1, 1, and 1, but we're naming 3 ones. So he's number 1. Let's hear who's your 1, number 2.
Well, this is a kid I haven't gotten to call yet because I haven't seen the United States as a broadcaster yet, but I have watched him on 2 different occasions as a fan. And it's Duncan Mout, who he's been outstanding on the mound for the United States. He's a lefty, has thrown against Panama, South Africa, and the Dominican Republic. He's made 3 different appearances, has thrown 5 1/3, and the kid's got 9 strikeouts. He's the guy that the United States has turned to whenever they need outs, and it's so important in this tournament. The best U-12 team that I have ever seen doing this tournament was the U.S. team in 2017. And while they had a good offense, they won that tournament on their pitching. And Duncan Mout reminds me of so many arms that they had on that 2017 team that just rolled through this tournament and eventually beat Chinese Taipei in the final at the old Tainan Municipal Stadium. So I just see a little bit of that in Duncan Mout. And look, the fact that he's left-handed, the sky is the absolute limit for this kid, right? He's got such good swing and miss stuff. He throws for good velo, about 120 Ks an hour at 12 years of age. There's plenty of room for upside in this kid. And just like we talked about with Iker Cavillo, he can swing the bat as well. He's 3 for 7. He himself has a couple of doubles. He's driven in 3. So the important thing to remember, I mean, we see all these big league pitchers, you know, and think of them as pitchers, but whenever they were once 12 years old, they were probably the best player on their team. So they're probably playing a little bit of shortstop. Obviously, Duncan Mound's not doing that as a left-hander. He plays in the outfield. I think he's played a little bit of first base for them as well. But watching him atop the mound, throwing gas from the left side as a lefty, that you always got a little bit of an uptick in my heart as a left-hander. And he's been a lot of fun to watch. And if they are going to make any noise in the Super Round, he is going to have something to say about it.
2 things. The first, 120 K an hour. Don't forget that the mounds are closer to the plate in this under 12 event than your regular diamond. So that appears quicker as well. Kind of like softball, how when you bring that distance between the circle and the plate, that reaction time is required. So that is heavy stuff from this young man. And two, you cannot underestimate the value of having a guy that has strikeout stuff in tournament baseball, because teams are so good. They pressure on the base paths all the time. You need to have a get out of jail free card. And that is every single time in tournament baseball, a guy that has some good whiff stuff to be used in different situations. So those are usually the teams that you look for when you're trying to forecast and predict a team in tournament baseball, is who's going to be able to bail their team out when they need it the most, because things happen really, really quickly. All right, number 3, you've gone Mexico, you've gone USA. Tell me you are leaving North America.
Kind of.
Oh, no.
This one will be a little bit different just because I don't want them to get buried. We talked about them a moment ago, and that's the team of the Dominican Republic. We can very easily get carried away with these Asian teams who very well could play each other for a gold medal. I think the Dominican Republic is going to play spoiler. I think they'll jump up and surprise one of these teams in the super round. But I think they deserve a lot of credit for how well-rounded and powerful their offense has been. Even if they end up going 0-5 against super round teams, I think they deserve a huge rap for the team that they've put together. Look, they had a bit of a traveling party. Me and Boston were talking about this a little bit, maybe yesterday or the day before. They brought a film crew. They brought a few extra EOs. They brought a crew with them because they knew that they had a pretty good team. We've never really seen that from a Latin American team other than Mexico in this tournament. And, the Miami Vice uniforms that they're rocking out, the black and the pink and the creams, they've got the look, they've got the swag. But this is a team that has
it is so
without a doubt. Without a doubt. It's one distance and then the rest, right? I mean, I love Samurai Japan's uniform. I think that it is the best in international baseball from a traditionalist standpoint. But the Dominicans' jerseys are A+. Plus.
You gotta find a way to get one of those too. I
might actually.
They roll that out for
Anderson.
Future events.
Yeah, I'll go have a chat to Henderson Hernandez and see if I can score one. Look, this is a team that has 7 home runs, most of anybody in the tournament, and it's come from 7 different players. I don't know that we've ever seen that in a tournament like this. So, yes, they've lost to Korea. Yes, they've lost to the United States. Both, by the way, very competitive games. This team has looked really, really good, man. And I don't know that they deserve to be 0-2 against super round teams. Group B could just as easily be 1 win, 1 loss all the way across the board. And we're looking at 6 teams at 1-1 because the Dominican had a lead against the United States early. Pitching sort of let that slip away. The U.S. ends up winning that game. Things could be a whole lot different if the Dominican Republic, maybe if they played Korea later in the tournament, things might be a little different as well, because as we've talked about in this U-12 tournament, the development from day 1 to day 10 is astronomical for all of these teams because they're 12-year-olds. But just the amount of power that they have shown, they've been a lot of fun to call. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention just their offense as a whole and their ability to just hit tanks. We've seen like six of the 7, I think, have been to the opposite field. So it's not as though they're just Deadpool hitters. They're actually patient hitters taking what the pitcher gives them. So they've been a lot of fun to watch. And just because I think in the next couple of days, if they do suffer a few more losses, they might be that one super round team that just gets lost. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention and thank them for the power that they've shown us because they've been so much fun to watch.
I like how I was like, name a player, and you're just like the entire Dominican lineup. So you know what? Yeah. I'm going to go with that, but I'm going to pick up some slack for you. I'll just rattle a couple. I don't have the same in-depth insights as you, but Dingzhu Zhang on Chinese Taipei has looked really good too. He's been used twice, 2 appearances. He's got an ERA of 0.78 in 7 2/3 innings. He's only walked 1. And he's only given up 1 extra base hit. And he has 12 strikeouts to go along with that. He is clearly the guy for the Chinese Taipei and the host team. So I think that is definitely worth noting as well. And I think we'd also be remiss if you didn't mention Eric Claudio, who is one of the Dominicans. I might specify for you. He hasn't hit a home run, but he's got 8 hits. That's second in the tournament. So they have that power, but they've also got contact guys in Claudio. And then Christopher Chikradov is 10 for 16 with 2 doubles and 7 RBIs so far. He is having a heck of a tournament. And JDL Zayas on Dominican leads the tournament, just to round out some stat leaders for you with RBIs. He's also hit a home run. And I mean, there's a few players that have multiple home runs. I'll just roll them out for you while we're on a roll. Cheng En Hu on Chinese Taipei, Taiki Toyama on Japan, and Christian Uriel Valadez on the USA has hit 2 homers as well. So there's some names rattled off for you that we've mentioned that in 10 years we're going to pull up as an archival clip being like, do you remember when Taiki Toyama was dominating the Under-12 World Cup? Well, now he's just transferred to the MLB for $1.8 billion, which is only the 6th largest contract in MLB history because it's 10 years from now, and that seems to be where we're going. But, you get the idea.
Well, you remember when we talked to Jonathan Mayo before the MLB draft, and he mentioned Jaden Stroman, who ended up not getting drafted because he just committed and said that he wanted to go to Duke. We saw him here in 2019, and that kid is probably going to be a first-round draft pick. I mean, you talked about Kurtz and what he did with Oakland. Well, not Oakland, a team that should still be in Oakland. That's a different podcast. It's going to get to the point in the next 3 or 4 years where I think we really start to see that rock rolling downhill, where we're like this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy, which is going to be a really exciting thing for this tournament because it's only going to make it more popular, right? I mean, we see it with the Little League World Series because it's been going on for a bajillion years. This tournament only dates back to 2011. So, I think the more names you rattle off, the more opportunity you have for a potential big leaguer and a potential star to emerge out of those names.
Okay, let's get to the pointy end of this. Gold medal game. It's on Sunday. Teams still have to play 3 games. At time of recording, schedule not confirmed yet, but it will be up in a couple hours on the WBSC website. Either way, teams got to round out who they're playing against each other. We went through the standings earlier. 2-0 Korea, 4 teams at 1-1, 0-2 Dominican. Who do you feel the most comfortable with? They all have a shot. We've outlined that throughout this episode at all, but you have to name one team that, again, if you were to, Martians with their beam pointing at planet Earth, series on the line, which team do you feel? I want comfort. I don't want a bold pick. That's for Spoon and I on another episode. I want who you feel most comfortable with in that gold medal game.
Spoon and you have been on fire too, by the way. Shout out Spoon. Good grief.
Unbelievable.
Weekend pickoff coming up soon. Don't miss that podcast. Look, this is going to fly in the face of everything I've said for the last 32 minutes. But because of who they're going to trot out on the mound tomorrow, and because they get to play Korea, I think it's Japan. I think Japan, even through their loss today, are still comfortable because they still control their own destiny. I think they win any TQB battle when it comes to the 2 teams in their division or from their group, and they get to send Shitaro Hashimoto to the mound tomorrow, who's already thrown a complete game in this tournament with 6 innings against Cuba, 5 strikeouts, and he only allowed 3 hits. He wasn't eligible to pitch today. If he would have been, I don't know this for certain, but I think Hideaki Okubo probably would have pitched Shitaro Hashimoto today to be able to give him that best chance of going 2-0. Against super round opponents, because then, like I said, a head-to-head loss against Korea probably doesn't necessarily matter. You can still win the other 2 and get to a gold medal game. So even though they suffered a loss today, and even though they play Korea, an undefeated team, tomorrow in the 1v1, solely because of what we saw clinical from Shitaro Hashimoto earlier in this tournament against Cuba, I mean, any kid that can go out and throw a 3-hit shutout, 6 innings at 12 years of age, gets to back up in a game like that against a regional rival. If I had to put my last on something, I would be saying that Shitaro Hashimoto is gonna get to bed early tonight, and we will see a fun one under the lights at the main stadium tomorrow when he takes on Korea.
And I still feel good about the United States. They have that one loss. I think maybe it's a good learning experience for them. Sometimes it's a little bit of a reality check that every opponent at this level can come at you. They traditionally are a team that gets to the gold medal game. They have 2 of the best hitters. They've got some great pitching. You outlined Cooper Mount. They've just got a bit of power about them. And I think that's going to bode themselves well and that can consistently work at the level of this tournament. So I kind of like the clinical nature of Japan as well. I like the power of the USA. I think Mexico's a cool story. I don't know. We're going to find out if they are going to be able to consistently beat 3 top teams going into the next round, because that's probably what they're going to do. So I feel most comfy with them, but it is wide open, man. Like, it's not going to be decided probably until the final pitch on Saturday who will be playing in the gold medal game on Sunday. I can't wait to watch that, especially on Saturday, because I feel sorry for the WBSC tiebreaker guys who have to be like, if this happens, then this, but if this happens, then this, and if this happens, then this. And if a chicken runs through a fence and does a somersault in the temperature is over 32 degrees, but not more than 37, then this happens, right? Like, that is how crazy some of these tiebreakers are going to feel.
That is part of the TQB equation too. Not many people know about the chicken aspect of TQB, so it's good that you brought that to
light. I had to bring it up. So, but dude, there's also the placement round starting, and this is important because we banged on about this in our first under 12 World Cup podcast. These tournaments are worth world ranking points for the whole program, the whole senior team, everything through there. And okay, look, you know what? Some people, I understand when they're saying it's an under 12 event. How can this reflect the senior national team and the world ranking points? And I hear you. I get it. But I kind of like this approach by the WBSC in the respect that it quantifies your baseball nation. That's just not your senior team. That's your representative teams at every levels. It's telling you, hey, who's the best at developing baseball tournament teams when the lights are on and it's time to go. And these points are important, and there's a lot of pride on the line anytime you wear a jersey. And the placement round standings is looking pretty tight too coming into this, Rolsey.
Yeah, it is. And just to finish that point, I was talking about this on a broadcast last night. It's even more important hurdling at December 31 this year because the 2027 Premier 12 is based on the year-end rankings this year. When you look at 11 and 12 right now, it's Australia and Cuba. Australia and Cuba are both making sure that they send teams to both the U-12 and the U-18 World Cup because they don't want to be usurped. And that 13th position is Colombia. They're a few points behind. They don't have any teams in these tournaments, so it's unlikely that anybody could leapfrog Australia and Cuba. But those are two nations, particularly sort of on that Premier 12 bubble. They don't want to have to play in those qualifying tournaments that happen next year. So by sending a U-12 team to the World Cup, you're basically ensuring that you're going to get some sort of point accumulation. The points from the previous one will fall off. So it's important for some of these teams that maybe you don't want to finish worse than what you did 2 years ago, because essentially you will lose points. If you finish even, you'll essentially have the same amount. If you finish better, you'll basically could improve your spot in the standing. So it's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up, because this year, more so than any other year, once every 4 years before that Premier 12, because of the new format with the essentially the Premier 16 that it will be.
Yeah, you're right. And it adds some more value to it, which is why there's some interesting matchups in here. Just quickly, the standings of the placement round: Cuba and Panama are 2-0, Australia and Czechia are 1-1, and Germany and South Africa are 0-2. Now, we'll start near the bottom there. South Africa, if they can go out there and win a game, that would mean the world to that baseball program and those kids at this world event. And they're going to have some better chances than they had in the initial round because they get to play teams that are a little closer to your competitions. And now managers can actually start managing. Who are your best 9? Who's the team that we want to go at? Who do we want to throw our ace against? All these decisions are going to creep in there. Cuba and Panama look like they're a little bit above the other 4 teams, just from what I've seen so far. Panama might be a bit gettable, but they've been pretty competitive as well, both winning those 2 games. What I'm most interested in is Australia versus Czechia. I feel like this is the start of a beautiful rivalry, right? Czechia, they beat Australia at the Under-18 World Cup in a huge win for that program the last time it rolled around. Australia beat Czechia to get to the quarterfinals of the World Baseball Classic. Czechia becoming a European superpower. Australia dominates the Oceania region. Both of them have small baseball playing populations, but both of them's communities are so passionate. It's infectious around it. and they're on a collision course to play each other with the same record. Australia and Czechia are both looking for their best finish in this event, which would be that 9th spot. And it honestly might be a game between the two teams to, one, see who gets more world ranking points in between two teams where the gap is closing between them, and two, who can finish their highest. So Australia versus Czechia, I'm actually really looking forward to for what it means to me for both of those baseball programs.
Yeah, look, I think that's a pretty good call. I'm not sure exactly when that game will happen. The schedule is just sort of big. I mean, it's predetermined, the schedule, based on who plays who seating-wise, but I haven't seen when that game is. But, I mean, look, and those two teams will match up pretty soon as well in the World Baseball Classic. So I think that's a great call because they are two really emerging baseball nations. We've known Australia to be somewhat of a giant killer until they run into Cuba at international tournaments, obviously, but Czechia is going to get somebody in one of these main tournaments very, very soon. It could end up happening potentially in this placement round. It could happen at a U18s. It could happen at a World Baseball Classic. But I think that's a great call by you because that should be a fun game. And maybe one potentially I'll position myself to be on the broadcast for. A little bit of ear candy for you.
If you could maneuver that, wow, I would be in heaven, Andrew Reynolds. I would be into that. But you're right. The world rankings dropped right before that. Colombia on the outside. Czechia are a bit, they've got 900 points to make up to get into the 12 and 1,000 on Australia. It's not gonna happen, right? But Panama has been a fast rising baseball country, just by the way, right? They sit 9th in the world ranking right now. They dropped behind Puerto Rico, who moved up in the last rankings. But man, I'm telling you, like Panama, you can't sleep on them too. They're very sneaky, and they only have a short gap to close between Netherlands, Puerto Rico. Venezuela are 1,000 points ahead, but don't have a team in this tournament. And the battle between Panama and Dominican might be interesting with just 500 points separating them on the world rankings. So that's another little sneaky battle as well. And yeah, I mean, I'm also cheering, just to be honest. I hope Germany win a game. I hope South Africa win a game. I hope everybody wins a game because I think that's a cool experience as a 12-year-old when you win a game at a World Cup. You saw what it meant to both Australia and Czechia when they got their one.
Yeah, and I mean, keep in mind, like I said, because the tournament's expanding, that 13 to 18 is just as important heading into December 31st because 13 to 18 automatically get in to the qualifiers that'll happen in 2026. There's two other wildcard teams that the WBSC obviously will announce, and if you host a tournament, you have a better chance of becoming a wildcard, et cetera, et cetera. But 13 to 18 in this new Premier 12 format is just as important. So ensuring that you get those qualifying points to stay in. I think China right now is the one team on the bubble in exactly 18th. So ensuring that you're inside of that 18th spot means that you at least get that crack to get into the Premier 12. So it's so interesting to be having conversations like that about, a senior World Cup competition in the context that what these youngsters are playing for. Yes, they're playing for their country. They're playing for medals, but what they're playing for is something so much bigger than that, right? And that's what I think makes this such a cool tournament.
Rolsey, I know you have more prep to do, so we'll wrap it there. We will be back after the tournament ends to wrap up how the tournament unfolded. We'll run you through some of the key moments that got to the gold medal game. You're going to see the headline, Japan, Korea, whoever it is, wins the under-12 World Cup, but we might have to pinpoint a couple moments that happened in the Super Round game. We will give you our MVP of the tournament as well, our own MVP and our own pitcher of the tournament. So then again, we can look like geniuses when they make the major leagues as well. That'll come up in our next under-12 version of Expats. Rolsey, best of luck in covering it, and I hope you survive the typhoon, the sweltering heat, and the amount of baseball you're watching. That's the trifecta of natural disasters: typhoon, heat, baseball.
The fourth of those natural disasters is going to be me at the Taiwanese hot pot tonight. So as long as I get through that unscathed, I think we'll be good for the next 4 days.
Hey, well, we hope you all enjoyed our under 12 recap. It's going to be an exciting few days. Make sure you head to the WBSC website for all of your information. Follow them on social media as well. They've been a great resource so far. So, yeah, enjoy your international weekend of baseball, everybody.